Hello, my name is Landon, and today we will be talking about membrane structure and transport. And right here on the graph or diagram I have drawn up, it is the fluid mosaic model, and it describes the cell membrane as a flexible fluid layer made of phospholipids and proteins floating in it as well. The fluid is equal to lipids and proteins while they move sideways, and mosaic means made of many parts: lipids, proteins, and carbs. And secondly, I will be talking about the amphipathic phospholipids. Amphipathic means both hydrophilic, water-loving, and hydrophobic, water-fearing. And then the phosphate head, which is this right here, is the hydrophilic phosphate group. And then the tails, which is these right here, is the hydrophobic fatty acids. They both form a bilayer with tails inside and heads outside towards the water. And that would be this huge thing right here. That would be called the membrane proteins. So there's actually a lot to cover right here. First will be the channel proteins, which is, again, this big green thing. It forms pores for specific molecules or ions to pass. And then secondly would be the carrier proteins, which would be the same thing. It changes shape to move substances across and can also be passive or active. Thirdly would be the receptor proteins, which is basically this right here, and it receives signals like hormones and trigger cells responses. Fourth, we have recognition proteins, and that is this little plant looking thing right here. I'm not sure what it is, to be honest, but it acts as a ID tag and for a cell identity, often glycoproteins. Fifth, we have the enzymatic proteins. They speed up chemical reactions on the membrane surface and really just work around things. And then for the sixth, we have a junction protein, which links cells together to form tissue, and that would be these right here. So yeah. And now I will be talking about diffusion, which would be, I'm actually just gonna write it out. Diffusion, which would be the movement of molecules from high to low concentration, from high to low, until the equilibrium. No energy is needed, and it's a passive transport. Secondly, we have osmosis, which of course is water. It's the diffusion of water through a selectively permeable membrane, which is where water moves toward the higher solute concentration. Thirdly, we have the facilitated versus active transport, and that means the facilitated diffusion uses channels or carrier proteins, but it does not include energy. The active transport, on the other hand, does use energy, which is actually ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is to move substances against concentration gradients low or high. The fourth thing would be tonicity, which describes how a solution affects water movement across the membrane. hypotonic, hypertonic, and isotonic. So as you see here, we have hyper, which means swells or made to bust. And then in the middle we have iso, which means neutral or cell size stays the same. Or we have at the very end right here, the hypo, which means it shrinks. So during hyper, you see these right here begin to swell up and then soon to either bust or get extremely larger than what it started at. And then we have the cell size right here where you see all of them, they look just the same, which is isotonic. And then we have hypo, which is hypotonic, where they soon to shrink and then immediately just like give out. And then we have endocytosis and exocytosis. Endocytosis is where cells take materials into the cell by forming vessels, and that's actually right here. Endo means in, and cytosis means cell. We have pino, which means drink, and that's just pinocytosis. And then we have phago or phago, whatever it is, cytosis, which means eat. And then we have exocytosis, which in the last video I previously made, I said it meant exit, which is true. And then cytosis means cell. So it's different from endocytosis. It basically just releases. And then we have cell junctions. Tight junctions seal cells together, prevent leakage and intestines. Gap junctions, they allow small molecules to pass between cells. Communication. Adhesion, which means anchor cells together for strength. And then plasmatismata, it's just a channel between plant cells for communication and transport. And then lastly, we have aquaporins, which is a special channel protein that allows fast water movement across membranes. I'm pretty sure that's covered everything along for this chapter or along for this segment. So I'll catch you in the next video.